by the way, you are incredibly well matched. It's like freakish, actually. So you know, and what I mean with incredibly well matched is you are energetically well matched, and you have a way of perceiving each other that's really quite lovely, right? And very balanced, interestingly enough, right? It's not like one of you is weak in one area. You're actually both really strong in the areas that I've seen so far, and you just take turns, or it's a preference, and that's rare. Yeah. It's always a good day when I get into a workshop room and nobody's on the edge of divorce. Let's put it this way. Thank you. You know, because sometimes I walk into a workshop room and everybody's there on a last-ditch effort, right? It's this weekend or bust. And so it's very nice to actually work with people who are actually good with each other, right? There's always things you want to learn and stuff like that, but I'm saying this to say all of you, like I said earlier, are really well matched. And when you get to a point where you know, that's not to say it doesn't get boring sexually or the biodegradable bag isn't where it's supposed to be, but in general, you're not fighting a constant uphill battle, which some people enjoy as a kind of psychological disposition. So if you are able to navigate more or less, right, what's happening, then you can come to something like this and other practices from a place, when this is the best way to actually do it, from a place of let's go on an adventure, right? So, and everyone here has essentially stated you came on an adventure, right, so to speak. And so let's go on an adventure is different than we need to do this or it's going to go south, or you're not quite good enough, so I'm going to drag you to this workshop and I'm going to pretend I'm here for both of us, but it's really for you, you know, like that kind of stuff has a different feeling, because essentially when you are with someone and you don't like who they are, fundamentally, you're doing everybody a disservice, because your partner deserves to be with somebody who thinks you're cool, and you deserve to be with somebody who thinks, you know, that you are cool. And so when that's not the case and people date potential, then you're constantly punishing somebody for not being who you think they could be, right? So if you want to learn, let's say, tantric principles or ecstatic principles from that place, you will fail. Mm-hmm. Because the very essence of, let's call it, tantric's a bit misleading too, because there's so much neo-tantric things. Yeah. But if we say, you want kind of a yogic, ecstatic sexual experience, right? Meaning you want to have the kind of, it doesn't have to be actual intercourse. You can also, by the way, do this internally, so this isn't just for couples. But if you want to have an ecstatic relationship via your body with God through either your own body or a partner's body, you're going to have to be actually okay with yourself and your partner, right? Mm-hmm. That's the fundamentals. And so in yogic sexual practice, we're doing the things we're doing now first. Yeah. So one way of saying generosity in the more, let's say, classic tantric sense is loving kindness, compassion, right? Presence, being available. So like yesterday when we did the thing where you had to feel your partner and then enliven them, right? These are tantric practices. They're just, you know, tailored for, you don't have to be an adept, right? But they are the practices. You learn how to bring energy to your partner's body. That's the number one practice to start with when you want to have ecstatic yogic sex. If you don't have energy in your body and you can't bring energy to your partner's body, it's going to be a snore fest, you know? Because as you know, a lot of ecstatic sexual practice becomes very still at some point. And then if you don't have a lot of energy, you won't have an erection or any kind of pleasure, right? And then that's the end of that. And like I said, you can do this internal with yourself, but it's the same principle. You're just going to fall asleep if you don't have enough ecstatic energy to course through your body. what you're training for is bring your body to your partner's body with enjoyable, enthusiastic energy, and not, you're fucking doing this right, wake up, we're supposed to have a date, right? So these are the preliminaries, so to speak. Another preliminary is opening your heart to the goodness of your partner, loving kindness and compassion, right? Seeing your partner as a human and not a commodity, right? Because that's one of the problems with the neo-tantric approach, is that often, not always, but often, is that essentially your partner becomes this commodity, you just like using them to get something, versus who is this human heart in this beautiful, form that I can worship and be worshipped by. That's the disposition. And so when we do these practices where you sit and you read the card and you praise, what we're really doing is saying, this is the divine representation that you have chosen for a relationship. You are going to devote loving attention to that, right? You're giving devotion. You're worshiping, right? But we're not saying those things, because if we say those things, everybody has to throw up in their mouth, right? I'm like, hi people, sit down, worship your partner, right? Like, whoa. But that's what we're doing. So you're doing the preliminaries, but then the next thing that happens, and this is where we have to say, there are spontaneous ecstatic states that can happen, and there's also practices that need to be done. So we'll talk about spontaneous ecstatic states first, but they can be hit and miss in the sense that you could just have eaten something wrong and it's not that ecstatic, but you can have them. And how do you have spontaneous ecstatic states? Typically prolonged embodiment, like we did this morning, where you would do, let's say, an hour and a half of something like a nonlinear practice, or even dancing, right? Like really like a long time of, over time you get practice, and then you don't need to do an hour and a half of preliminary practice before you have sex. But on occasion, it's an interesting thing to do that and go, okay, we're going to get so into our bodies. We're going to get into that kind of almost ecstatic trance state. Aren't you guys doing ecstatic dance? Yeah. So, like you just have to be careful that you don't fuzz out and go out the top, which some people do when they think ecstatic dance. I always joke that sometimes you look into an ecstatic dance room and everybody's on their tippy toes, flailing up here in the realms that are not the body, right? But that's not always true, and you can ground. So that's kind of how you spontaneously can get into these states. But you can also actually learn how there's very specific practices on how to engage sexually by engaging with your energy body, right? And so there is practices where you learn about your central channel, which is this is, by the way, how I developed nonlinear. I was given a central channel practice by my teacher, and I realized that if I actually engaged with my central channel and opened and kind of cleared my central channel, I could deal with both trauma and conduct pleasure. So you learn about that, and then you learn about the circuitry of your body, and then you bring your body to your partner, and then you can actually direct energy. Yeah. You can do that in sex, you can do that with oral sex, you can do that with sitting across from each other. We're going to do a version that is not sexual, but that has that tracking energy tonight. And then there's lots and lots of very specific practices, but you have to have the preliminaries, because sex without the heart and without the praise is not the thing, right? It's not ecstatic. You can have good sex, but ecstasy comes from the opening of your entire system. Yeah. And then it doesn't really matter what happens pleasure-wise. It's just this, whoa, this super, super expanded state. And for that, you have to practice compassion and heart openness. You have to practice attentional quality, because it takes a while. You have to be able to stay focused, and things like we just did, and we'll do some more leading. The way you work this out is you have code words. So you kind of, now you know this is something that might happen, right? So you have code words, and the reason you have code words is so it's like a shortcut, right? It's a quick one-word communication. You don't have to go time out. Let us now process what needs to happen next, right? Exactly. So you have to have code words. Ideally, these are code words that are either really silly or somewhat obscene, ideally both, where you have a word for, I really just want to give you pleasure, right? Like you just have a word for that, and you have a word that says, I'm totally cool with that, or I really want to have sex, right? So you just have this like shortcuts where you can communicate, your needs essentially very quickly. Strawberry vanilla milkshake, right? So strawberry vanilla milkshake. So strawberry, you're perfectly fine just cuddling. Vanilla, you're good with going down on her. Milkshake, you want her to come, but you don't want to really go there, right? Like, let's say, so you can just go, these are like your choices. Oh, strawberry vanilla milkshake. And then she can go, I want chocolate sprinkles. Right, so she wants sex on top of that. She doesn't want to come, she wants sex, right? Like you come up with some language that's silly, but like a code word kind of a thing, and then you don't have to deal with it, right? You don't have to go, well, it's like a one-word thing, and then maybe you have a different word, and then you kind of, at that point you'll go, okay, we'll figure it out, but. A lot of that can be just shortcut. And over time, of course, you can read the signs better as well, because you're still learning. You're still learning each other's language. So code words are a good way to go. Yes. Yeah. Or simple sentences that don't stop everything. If you want to live a beautiful life together that brings joy to you and I'm assuming those around you. So then the question is, what does that mean, right? So then we go step down and we go, what does that mean? Well, there's only 24 hours in a day, right? So that's the same commodity for all of us. So there's not endless amounts of shit that can happen in 24 hours, right? But that's not to say that you have to give up everything else in order to have a joyous life, or like an intimate joyous life. But you will have to be more, let's say, specific about that part of your life, right? So typically when you go, oh, we should go to a warehouse party in Brooklyn, you don't just come home from work and go, I think there's a warehouse party somewhere over there. Let us just walk there and enjoy ourselves, right? You go, next Friday evening, there's a warehouse party here. Yeah. We're going to go. Let's buy tickets, right? You could say in the same way. Next Saturday evening, you and me, let's make a plan, right? And let's buy tickets, right, so to speak. And then go, okay, what are we going to do, right? That could still involve, like you said, what are we doing beforehand? It could be that you do something in the context of doing something together. But you could also go, well, once a week or whatever, we'll switch our schedule up a bit, and we're actually going to make a date, an appointment to have joy between the two of us. And then, and this is where these cards come in, this is why I developed this damn exercise, right? This isn't my first rodeo, so to speak. I have this thing called the jar exercise, which is what this all leads up to. And so what you do is you go, okay, we want to cultivate joy in our intimate relationship. Now, this is interesting because you're saying joy. She's going for ecstatic dissolution, right? That's a different jar, But that's the thing. They are going for ecological welfare over there. You know, I'm joking, but you know what I mean. Everybody has a jar, has a purpose. If you, by the way, where are you? Don't have a relationship, this is how you get a relationship. You know what kind of jar you have. And then you essentially go, does your jar fit with my jar? Would you like to put your hands in my jar? Is this a nice, you know, that's how you actually determine relationship. I want to say that because, you know. But so that said, you will have to make some plan like you make for the warehouse party. There's no way around that. You can't have a busy life and not schedule those kind of things. If you wait for the spontaneous arising of both of your... exactly. There's no spontaneous arising. They're not in Brooklyn, right? I mean, like you said, if you live somewhere in, you know, Bali and, yeah, it's a different story. But you're not, and you don't want to, and that's totally fine. But you do have to make time, and you have to buy the ticket. And then, the reason you have these things, and we'll work with them now, is what you do is you literally have a jar or something of that kind. I like it to be somewhat elaborate, where each partner has a color piece of paper, right? And then what you do is you put the things that you want, and we can decide, are they erotic? Are they joyful? Do they involve an activity? Whatever. But you put like an entire wish list of things that you would like to experience on a color of paper. You fold them, you put them in the jar. He does the exact same thing, different color, goes in the jar. And then what you do is you go, Saturday, it's your time, right? And so you switch back and forth. But so let's say she says, I want to go to a lingerie store. You're going, oh yeah. And then so you go, okay, we're going to go to the lingerie store. She's going to try on all kinds of lingerie for me. And then I'm going to I get to pick something, right? For instance, right? Or you go, I'll get to pick something, she gets to pick something, but then she needs to wear that thing and we're going home and she's going to have to dance for me or whatever, right? Like, so you go, what would make this super joyous for her and enjoyable for you, right? But she knows how to spell it out, right? So she could spell an entire fantasy out. Do they still have agent provocateur? Do they still have you ever been there? Oh. Well, I don't know if they still have this, but in some of the agent provocateur, don't ask me how I know that. I know it from a friend. I have a client. They have these changing rooms that have a door that opens to a room behind it. Oh, yes. So you have the changing room, and then there's this little, peep show kind of a window, and you're on the other side of it. They even have music and stuff like that, because that's what agent provocateur is about, right? So you can sit there, with your beverage of choice, and at some point the window will open, and there she is, and then maybe the window closes again, and then the window opens again. So there's like endless play that you could have if she spells it out, and you go, okay, we're going to do that today.